Jugo was an ugly child born in a prison cell with heterochromia and spent most of his life in prison to the point he felt at home in prisons. One day, he wakes up in his usual prison cell with chainless shackles around his body parts and awakens a supernatural ability to turn these shackles into overpowered blades. He started seeing himself as a monster and decides to get rid of these shackles to gain true freedom. However, before any of this, Namba prison sits on a remote island in the middle of the sea. People call it an impenetrable fortress because no one has ever escaped from it. Right when things seem calm, the alarm rings and 4 inmates from Building 13 escape their cells. Security rushes in to seal every exit. Cider watches the chaos through the cameras and already panics about losing his salary. Hajime arrives to check the situation. Cider explains that 4 inmates from Cell 13 are loose. Inmate number 11 Uno, number 25 Nico, number 69 Rock and number 15 Jugo sprint through the halls. Cider mentions that all of them are repeat offenders who basically treat escaping like a hobby. One of them even mocks the cameras, which instantly triggers Hajime rage. A security door slams in front of them, but they lunatics look excited instead of scared. They sprint to another exit, but that one shuts too. They keep running through the hall like kids in an amusement park. They slip through a gate as it was about to close, and Jugo barely squeezes through. Inside the next hallway, they were excited to expect traps. As they pass through the gate, they are surprised to see no trap there. Nico almost steps forward, but Uno stops him with one brain cell working overtime. He tosses a card ahead which burns midair from hidden lasers. Now they are hyped again, Nico comparing the trap to some anime nonsense. Uno squints once and randomly draws the laser pattern in his head like a metahuman. He steps forward with a weird dance like gymnastics with Rock and Nico following him. They all end up stuck mid-pose but surprised that nothing hits them. Then Jugo casually walks past all 3 while telling them he already disabled the lasers. They laugh, but their excitement vanishes when walls begin closing in on them. As the walls tighten, Jugo spots an opening above. They climb fast and escape through the gap right before getting crushed. Frustrated, the warden cannot believe they survived. Inside the vents, Nico points out sleeping gas ahead. Jugo agrees they will pass out if they breathe it, and they drop out of the vent before it reaches them. They barely land before a huge metal ball rolls toward them. They run for their lives while the warden celebrates catching them. Jugo spots a garbage shaft and rushes toward it. Uno tries to stop him, but he jumps anyway, so the others follow. Rock grabs the edge and holds all of them up. The floor below crackles with electricity. One slip and they would be fried. Back in the guard room, Cider stresses over losing her paycheck again. Furious, Hajime knocks the desk and asks about Yamato. Cider replies he is out on rounds. The inmates spot Yamato ahead. He runs toward them laughing, acting like he is joining their training routine. They switch direction, but he chases them anyway. Hajime smirks, thinking Yamato will catch them as he knows the layout of the prison. Yamato then asks over comms where he should turn since he has zero sense of direction. Warden breaks another monitor on hearing this. Cider reminds him that Yamato is directionally challenged. The inmates reach a wall with left and right arrows on it. They debate which way to go, with Uno challenging Rock to pick a side. If he chooses right, he gets Rock's main dish tomorrow. These dumbass already act like they will escape by dinner. They pick right and immediately face guards ahead of them. The guards open fire and Nico jumps in front of Jugo, apparently saving his life, and gets hit. He collapses and pretends to say his final words, but opens his eyes again, saying the tranquilizers work opposite to him. Hajime gets frustrated and confirms all drugs hit her in reverse due to his addiction. Rock knocks out the guards, saying he prefers punching. Nico sees guard dogs and sprints toward them like they are puppies. The dog leaps and suddenly becomes a real puppy instead of a beast. Everyone, including the warden, is confused. They clear trap after trap with weird confidence. At one point they handle a crocodile and joke that Namba feels like the Amazon jungle. They believe they are close to the exit. They reach a giant locked door which seems to be the final barrier. Jugo explains it has voice lock, fingerprint lock, everything lock. He brags that he can even open a black hole. After all that yapping, Dumbass taps the door and triggers an explosion alarm. He tries a pattern again and only speeds up the countdown. The others roast him while he tries a third time and finally opens the door. They step outside and breathe in fresh air until they see the Hajime waiting for them. Hajime claims the prison is unbreakable. They laugh, saying they are unbeatable at escaping. Rock charges at Hajime but gets punched into the ground. Uno rushes at Hajime and tries to challenge him to a game of rock paper scissors, but also gets destroyed. Hajime slowly walks toward Nico and he collapses just from Hajime staring at him. The warden finally faces Jugo, who acts tough but gets folded by one punch. Hajime reminds Jugo that he is only good at running, not fighting. He tosses them back into their cell and scolds them for trying twice in one day. They still celebrate breaking a record by reaching the final gate. Later, Hajime writes his daily report. Cider informs him that Jugo requested a meeting. Jugo gets bored out of his mind, asking the warden to entertain him. The others jump in asking for weird favors. Nico requests a DVD player, but Uno points out that he can order it for him on his laptop. They see a news article about a dangerous criminal being captured. They laugh until they realize he might be sent to Namba and break down crying, begging Hajime not to put the psycho in their ward. The warden snaps and reminds them he is a supervisor, not their dad. Curious, Jugo asks Uno if hot girls will wait for him once he gets out. Uno instantly says no without giving it a second thought. They praise Namba, saying it is the best prison they ever lived in. Healthy food, air conditioning, and manga. Jugo adds that he has no home anyway to go after escaping, so he may as well stay. The warden watches them suspiciously, thinking they are plotting something again. Next morning, the warden catches Jugo escaping and throws him back inside. The others roast him for getting caught so fast. Jugo explains he saw a beautiful woman, and all of them turn into thirsty idiots and demand details. He only saw a glimpse, but she was hot. They ran to the visiting room hoping she came to see them. The warden speaks with a beautiful visitor when the inmates burst in. They mock him for scoring a hot girlfriend during her low point. The visitor then speaks with a deep voice, calling the warden brother. The warden tells them it is a man, not a woman. The inmates' excitement fades and they stare at Jugo since he said he likes boys too. A helicopter lands on the roof and the warden steps out. Cider runs to call Hajime to meet her. As Hajime goes his younger brother size and Jugo stands beside him acting like a prince offering company. Cider tries to take Jugo back, but Hajime's brother begs to let him stay like a guest. Meanwhile, the warden updates Hajime and orders him to keep a close eye on Jugo. She mentions Jugo's father is Namba's biggest embarrassment and an eternal fugitive. Jugo talks with Hajime's brother, who compliments his escape skills. He asks about the restraints on his neck and wrists. Jugo explains they are special locks with no keyholes, so he cannot escape them. Someone put them on him while he slept, and he remembers the man who did it, a guard with a red scar on his neck. He tells him that only that man can remove them, and he has visited every prison chasing him. Namba is his last stop, and he is determined to find him. The warden tells Hajime that Building 13 holds 4 inmates who have escaped every prison they touched. She asks him again since she still finds it hard to believe they never even tried to escape under his watch. Hajime stays stone-faced and insists everything has been normal. One supervisor, Seimon, tries to act like a hero and accuses him of lying, but Hajime shuts him down before he even finishes. The warden sends Hajime off, but he tosses a jab on his way out and says those inmates are just inmates and not some diabolical masterminds. Her heart jumps and she turns away. Seimon beside her thinks she is shaking from anger, but in reality she is blushing like a teenager and is low-key thrilled that he called her Mississippi. Meanwhile, Hajime sighs and thanks his poker face for saving him from getting caught in this mess. Next day, Hajime calls roll and everyone from the troublemaker group answers except number 15, Jugo. Hajime rushes out since Jugo missing is never a good sign. He checks the computer in his office and then hears snoring noise from the night duty room. He finds Jugo sleeping inside like he owns a vacation resort. Jugo complains that his roommates are loud and useless, so he sleeps here for peace. Furious, Hajime wonders where Yamato is since he was on duty. Yamato pops in and says in his own goofy way that he was doing intense training outside. Jugo joins Rock for breakfast. Rock eats like his life depends on it, while Jugo admits the food is amazing. A huge silent man with no expressions suddenly walks in. He is the chef and a former inmate who took the job after finishing his sentence. Rock praises the food, but the chef ignores him as usual and goes his way. A moment later, the chef drops a massive cake on the table as thanks, but still keeps that silent brick wall personality. Rock hands Jugo a Rubik's Cube. They stare at it like it's an alien artifact, thinking what to do with it. Uno steals it, solves one side like he's showing off, and gives it back. He starts bragging about it, that it is impossible for fools like them, until Jugo solves the entire cube in seconds. Uno gets salty seeing this and hands him a metal puzzle next. Jugo pulls it apart instantly, and Uno almost has a meltdown. Rock and Nico wonder if Jugo should use his skills for something less dumb. Hajime walks in and knocks them out of their nonsense and orders them to head to the work area. Hajime explains that Building 13 has woodworking duty. Jugo and Rock tighten screws on a wooden box and complain that everyone else is doing easy stuff that looks like a school arts project. Hajime tells them their assignment is the hardest and says dumbass like them cannot handle anything advanced. His words fade out when Nico screams in joy because he made a wooden robot. Hajime kicks him straight away. Other dumbass pervert artist Uno shows up with a wooden girl he carved and gets the same treatment. Meanwhile, Jugo and Rock finish a full closet and Hajime actually praises them. Jugo says he added smart features like auto-open drawers. Hajime asks him to demonstrate, but Jugo taps the side and the drawer shoots out and smacks Hajime on the head. Later, Hajime and his junior talk about how these four idiots keep causing trouble. They worry the main warden will eventually find out about their escaping routine. Cider looks like he is about to cry, but Hajime smacks the emotion out of him. Jugo appears out of nowhere and says he also feels bad for them. They freeze and wonder how much he heard. Hajime sends Cider to check if anyone else escaped and says he will deal with Jugo. Jugo asks why Hajime hides their escape attempts from the warden and how it affects him. Hajime lets out a tired sigh and tells him he does not get how any of this works. He smokes his cigarette and begs him to stop breaking out every 5 minutes. Cider holds a stack of books when Hajime leaves his office. Hajime tells him that he is going to meet the warden and will return soon. Hajime rides in a weird upside-down looking train and reads a newspaper on the way. Meanwhile, the warden is busy blushing and fixing her hair every 2 seconds. Seiman assumes she is furious and ready to destroy Hajime. Security is insane in that place. Hajime goes through metal detectors, passcodes, and a full interview with 50 personal questions. When he enters, he gets surprised to see multiple supervisors inside. He jokes that either it is someone's birthday or somebody messed up big time. They tell him to wait since the warden is in a meeting. A creepy woman, Kiji, walks over and asks about his skin routine. The door opens and a DJ-looking guy, Mitsuru, steps out saying the warden is waiting. A huge pressure fills the hallway and one supervisor warns him to brace himself. Hajime enters and gives her the files about the 4 special inmates. Their fingers touch and she melts inside like she is in a romance movie. Seiman ruins the whole atmosphere by hitting Hajime and ordering him to apologize for touching the warden. Hajime apologizes and the Seiman starts mocking him as if he is some gorilla. Hajime puts him back in reality with one hit, calling him an idiot monkey. Hajime explains the 4 inmates. The warden wants details on their past, but Seiman keeps interrupting with dumb dramatic theories that get crushed every time. Number 25. Nico is from America. He has food allergies and a drug history. He always escapes because he is terrified of needles. Every time a doctor approached to treat him, he ran for his life. Here in Nanbaka, they treat with food and ointments, so he does not try to escape anymore. Rock is also American and was part of a violent gang. Seiman imagines it is because of vengeance or some dramatic backstory. Hajime says the real reason is that he hated prison food everywhere else. He behaves here because the food is amazingly delicious. Number 11. Uno is British. Polish authorities caught him in an underground casino. Hajime mentions he keeps gambling even inside the prison betting magazines. The guard imagines a sad romance story, but Hajime says he escaped only because he had dates scheduled. Then comes Jugo and the warden pays extra attention. He is Japanese and charged with larceny. He escaped every prison the moment he arrived. Hajime says this prison is the only place that can handle him. The warden asks his reason for escaping. Hajime says it is basically his hobby and he has no goal behind it. The warden says she believes him and dismisses him. Hajime walks out thinking he trusts the others, but Jugo still feels unpredictable. Hajime throws number 15 into his cell again, apparently catching him for the 5th time in the day. Jugo says he escaped again because the place is too comfortable and he got bored. They all think about their pasts and agree it is indeed comfortable. Number 11 mocks Jugo, asking if he even wants to escape or is just playing around. Jugo knocks it off. Outside their cell, an evil yellow-haired elf listens in with an evil grin. The warden gets a call about a new prisoner and orders Hajime to prepare for his arrival. Somewhere else a guard informs that same prisoner he has been transferred. Cider runs into Hajime while crying about the inmates in cell number 13 bullying him again. Disappointed, Hajime tells him to remember his training and act brave. Cider keeps sobbing that nobody takes him seriously. Hajime gets annoyed and tells him to stop acting like a princess and hit back. Cider says it never works for him and he remembers how the inmates scare him during rounds, laugh at his reactions and launch stuff at him whenever he tries to look strict. They even call him a pretty face like he is some cute little princess mascot. Cider says he wants to quit when Hajime gets furious and pushes him to return and try harder. He tells him that quitting now means he will stay weak forever. He offers to go with him and show him how to control dumbass like them. Hajime explains that every inmate has a weakness they can use. Uno is a pervert and is obsessed with girls. A magazine full of pretty women can keep that pervert distracted. Rock loves food more than life itself, and he just has to provide him with a menu to shut him up fast. Nico is the easiest since he only needs anime to stay calm. Cider asks about number 15. Jugo, who keeps escaping non-stop. Hajime mentions Jugo has a special weakness that he gets lonely whenever the others refuse to join him in escape attempts. He hates escaping alone and loses motivation. Hajime tells Cider to use that to handle him. The warden tells Hajime that the new inmate is special and wants him placed in cell 13. She gives Hajime the file and says this new guy also specializes in breaking out of prisons. She wants to see if the cell 13 idiots try to attempt an escape with him. Hajime agrees but asks what her real intention is, but she shuts him down cold. Hajime leaves and she blushes into her fantasy world again thinking about him. Hajime later meets Cider, who happily reports that the methods worked. He says the inmates now listen to him and he has been giving them magazines, snacks, and anime for 2 days straight. Hajime sighs thinking he accidentally turned Cider into their personal errand boy. Before leaving he tells him about the new transfer and to prepare cell 13. Inside the cell the inmates talk about the new arrival and guess if he is a murderer or something dramatic. Hajime opens the door and introduces the new prisoner. The inmate enters like a tornado and announces himself as Tsukumo, prisoner number 99. Everyone except Jugo gets excited and asks if he is a ninja. Tsukumo says he prefers the title shinobi and their excitement shoots up. They bombard him with dumb questions and Jugo cuts in and says all this ninja stuff only exists in fiction. Tsukumo suddenly appears behind him with a kunai at his neck and proves him wrong. Scared Jugo asks how he got caught if he is so skilled. Tsukumo says he lives in the shadows as a shinobi, but then suddenly he breaks down and says he got caught trespassing like an idiot. He explains that even in prison he tried to escape again and again. Jugo mocks him for getting recaptured every time. The others laugh that he is basically Jugo Part 2. Tsukumo says he has heard rumors of Jugo escaping skills and challenges him to see who is the best escape artist. As Jugo refuses, Tsukumo calls him scared, which instantly makes Jugo kick him in the face and accept the challenge. Cider runs back to Hajime crying again. He tells him that cell 13 is ignoring him now, even though he brings them everything they like. Hajime wonders how that happened so fast. Meanwhile, Jugo and Tsukumo head to the escape challenge. Tsukumo walks behind Jugo and says shinobi always walk in the shadows. They notice the others following too. They say they want to watch and will act like judges. They reach a steel door whose lock has changed. Jugo cracks it immediately. Tsukumo tries with his kunai from the shadows, but Jugo already beats him. Uno shows the next trap by throwing a card on the floor. Jugo also disables it with ease before Tsukumo could do anything. They sense someone coming and hide, but get relaxed to see Yamato doing his routine rolling exercises. Jugo says he already won since Tsukumo only followed him and did nothing. Hajime suddenly appears from hiding. Uno panics and says they did not break out, but they were just judging an escape challenge between Jugo and Tsukumo. Hajime tells them stepping out of their cell still counts as escaping. Tsukumo tries to show off his cloak of invisibility by covering himself with a white bedsheet. Hajime punches him since he could see him the whole time. Hajime blames Jugo for trying to escape again with his new buddy. Jugo tells him that this whole thing was Tsukumo's idea. Tsukumo mocks him, saying if he can get past Hajime, he will prove himself the best. He tries his shinobi skills and throws a bunch of kunai and leaves at Hajime, but only traps himself in his own mess. Hajime mocks him, saying forget escaping, now he has to clean. Back at the office, Yamato asks Cider what he is watching. Cider is looking through camera footage where they both noticed Tsukumo posing dramatically in front of every camera like he already knew where each one was. Hajime arrives and Cider asks about the inmates. Hajime tells him he put everyone back except Tsukumo, who is sitting among the kunai and leaves he has to clean first. Yamato arrives at cell 13 riding a horse and breaks the door. The inmates scream, asking why he is here. Yamato tells them that tomorrow is New Year and he needs their help decorating. They get excited thinking of the usual Japanese New Year treats. But their excitement dies when Cider walks in with a cleaning brush and says they need to clean before New Year since it is a Japanese tradition. They complain that guards should do it, but Cider says guards are assigned to clean headquarters. Meanwhile, Hajime and Seiman ask the warden for permission to clean her office. She blushes the second she sees Hajime. She watches him with soft eyes as he rolls up his sleeves and starts cleaning. Hajime notices her staring and gets nervous. He hesitates while cleaning her desk and sweat drips from his forehead. The warden catches a drop and imagines some wild romance scene in her head. After cleaning they leave and Seiman asks if Hajime did something wrong since the warden stared non-stop. Meanwhile, the warden is rubbing her face on the desk Hajime cleaned like a full Pookie. The warden gathers supervisors and guards for a New Year meeting. She praises everyone when one of the supervisors asks if she picked a building representative. She tells them it is almost decided. Seiman gets hyped claiming his building will win, but Kiji reminds him he never even makes the list. A supervisor, Kenshiro, mocks Hajime, calling his win last year was a fluke and he has no chance this year. Hajime says he does not want it and thinks it is the worst outcome. The inmates talk about Japanese New Year food and ask Jugo about how New Year outside in Japan compares to prison. Jugo sighs and tells them he does not know because he has never spent New Year outside. Uno asks Hajime for a poker game as he passes, but Hajime refuses since he has work. The New Year bell rings and everyone gets excited. They feel happy celebrating together, but Jugo gets a little sad. The warden gets more excited with each bell as her fantasies power up about Hajime. She finalizes the building representative and picks building 13. The inmates decide to goof off again and break out of their cell to celebrate New Year in their own style. Prisoners and guards gather in the yard as the warden wishes everyone a happy New Year. She announces the start of the annual New Year tournament, a long-time Namba tradition. The inmates stare at each other and wonder what kind of nonsense they will be dragged into this time. Hajime explains the rules that each building will form a team of guards and inmates to compete against the others. Cider adds that the winning guards get bonuses while inmates can ask for one item of their choice. Excited inmates crowd Hajime and beg him to let them join. He tells them participant inmates will be decided by the warden. Hajime freezes when the warden selects cell 13 as the participants. He feels like he just got set up. Meanwhile, she blushes and says she wants to test him. Seiman from building 8 mocks Hajime and pretends to feel sorry for him for getting cell 13, mentioning he will beat them easily. Their rivalry fills the air like a battle aura as they start calling each other names. The supervisor of building 6, Kiji, mocks both of them for acting like a kid. They mock her by calling her bird with makeup, and then all supervisors join in and start throwing petty insults. From the sidelines, the inmates watch this chaos and call the supervisors weak. Everyone loses it when inmate Jugo calls them scrawny. Mitsuru, the DJ-like supervisor, acts as the announcer for the tournament. He explains that each team must clear 5 events to win. He screams into the mic with a volume that makes Hajime want to pass out. Mitsuru announces the first event is Calligraphy and the best Kakizone piece will win. The inmates panic and put all their trust in Jugo since he is Japanese. Jugo picks the brush like a painter and releases an aura like he is some kind of art prodigy. Then dumbass writes outside the margins and everyone knows they are cooked. Cider tells them not to worry because Hajime and Yamato already made a New Year calligraphy piece. He casually adds that both of them are trained calligraphy teachers. Mitsuru announces Building 13 wins the first round on the top position. The warden blushes and imagines Hajime writing her name with those clean strokes. The inmates wait for the next event. Mitsuru announces the Mochi pounding Daruma drop. Giant bowls of Mochi and Daruma fall from the sky as he speaks. He announces that teams must finish their Mochi without dropping it, and they can either focus on their own Mochi or sabotage the others in order to win. From this point, it is building versus building. The first match is Building 13 against Building 5. Yamato arrives with two massive hammer-like tools and asks the inmates to join him in the round. He hands one to Jugo, who tries to lift it but drops it instantly and calls Yamato a monster. Rock sees a chance to flex and lifts the hammer with ease, flaunting the hammer like Yamato. Hajime picks him as a participant even though the dumbass clearly just wanted to show off. The rest sit in the audience while Yamato and Rock get ready for the game. Yamato tells him to stop the opponents and leave the Mochi pounding to him since he likes peaceful plans. Mitsuru announces the match. Yamato faces Inori Hakai from Building 5 and Rock will face Inmate 2 from the same building. The match begins and Yamato pounds the Mochi with full strength. The inmates cheer as they see Yamato's strength. Rock senses an attack and tries to defend it but reacts late. Inmate 2 knocks one Daruma out of their stack and sends it flying against the wall. He mocks Rock for getting rusty after moving to Building 13. Rock recognizes him as Liang. Uno explains that Rock used to be in Building 5. Rock asks if Liang still holds a grudge against him. Liang admits it and claims he trained every day just to beat him. He charges at Rock and breaks his hammer with a kick. While Yamato works on the Mochi, Inori interrupts him and says he would rather fight than watch him pound Mochi. Inori jumps at Yamato and their hammers collide. Liang rushes and tries to strike Rock again, but Rock blocks it and Liang mocks him for being weaker. Disappointed, Liang says Rock once taught him how weak he was, which pushed him to train harder. Liang tells him his wish that he wants a training ground as his prize and asks what Rock wants. Rock takes his time and says he wants a stone oven. Everyone freezes. He explains the chef wants one, and he wants to eat pizza and other stuff cooked in a stone oven. Rock mentions food becomes more delicious when baked in a stone oven. Liang gets mad and unleashes his secret technique with flames shooting from his leg. Rock gets furious, grabs his leg in midair and spins him. He throws Liang into the audience and takes one of Building 5's Daruma with him. The inmates cheer and call it the power of a healthy diet. Inori panics after seeing Liang get wrecked. Yamato feels inspired by Rock and he drops the hammer and walks toward Inori with a calm smile. Inori gets scared and tries to calm Yamato, but he punches him into the sky. Inori crashes into their Mochi and destroys it. Building 13 wins the round fair and square. Yamato and Rock celebrate with the other inmates while Seiman is stunned and admits he underestimated them. The supervisor of Building 3, Kiji, prepares his team for the next match against Building 13. The announcer introduces the next event, Hyakunin Issue. Number 15 calls it a competitive form of Karuta and asks Hajime who will compete. They all freeze when Hajime picks Cider. None of them knew a pretty face like him was good at anything. The announcer explains the rules. Hyakunin Issue needs mental strength and focus, with each team needing 3 players including 1 guard. Hajime tells Rock that one participant is a replacement in case someone cannot handle the mental stress. Jugo assumes it will be him since he is Japanese. He imagines his moment of glory, but Uno volunteers instead. He says it is basically a card game, so he has it handled. The resident gambler refuses to let anyone else take his spot, and also refuses the third participant, saying he is ample. Mitsuru announces the matchup. Building 3's supervisor Kiji Mitsuba will face Cider from Building 13. Uno will face the famous pretty boy duo number 3 Trois. and number 82 Honey from Building 3. The two self-proclaimed handsome inmates introduce themselves. Their beauty aura almost blinds Uno. He gets jealous and claims he is also pretty. Dumbass tries to compete by forming his own aura ball, but it fizzles instantly and he falls on his face. As he lies there, the pretty boys praise Cider's looks and try to recruit him. The match begins. Cider notices Uno struggling, but Kiji tells him to focus. Kiji assumes Hajime mocked them by picking a fool like Cider and plans to finish the match fast. Mitsuru starts singing a song, and Cider picks the card before the announcer finishes the third word. Kiji along with the audience freezes. As the song goes on, he keeps collecting cards like a machine. Kiji can only watch stunned. Yamato praises Cider, but Hajime says the real issue is Uno. Honey mocks Uno as he picks cards with dramatic flair. The inmates worry as Uno still has 0 cards, while Trois replaces Honey and takes a card with a smooth movement. He tells Uno he knows he only wins by cheating and he would not let him. Uno tries to grab a card desperately, but it vanishes before he touches it. Trois mentions disappearing cards are his specialty and continues to kick his ass. Hajime mocks Kiji for losing to Cider so badly. Kiji says they will still win thanks to their inmate players. Meanwhile, Trois keeps bullying Uno and vanishes every card he reaches for. He says Kiji warned him that Uno is a famous cheater and Uno will lose before he even figures out their trick. Kiji believes they have this secured by stopping Uno from cheating. Jugo laughs at Kiji and says they know nothing, that cheating is not his only skill. A dark smile forms on his face, hints something is definitely coming. Trois gets shocked when Uno suddenly starts catching up and picking cards with ease. Uno taunts him for thinking he only ever won gambles by cheating. Honey steps in to handle the situation, but Uno tells him he will finish him faster since he already knows all his moves. Uno keeps grabbing cards right before Honey's hand reaches them. Stunned, Honey asks what changed. Uno explains he figured out all 3 of his tells. His eyes always follow the card he wants, and he moves faster when picking cards on his right. He mentions that he has a habit of pointing his middle finger at the card he plans to take. The guards praise Uno for his sharp eyes. Honey loses his cool and his hair spikes up like arrows, showing his real ugly form. Trois jumps back in to help, but Uno mentions he knows all his patterns too. Trois refuses to believe it and claims he has none but gets destroyed anyway. Uno keeps stealing cards before he can react. Uno explains that Trois has 2 tells. He opens his mouth a little when he moves right and opens it wider when he moves left. The second tell is his blinking, 1 blinking for nearby cards and 2 when reaching for cards farther away. Uno calls him a total amateur as he wipes out every card in front of him. In the audience, the inmates watch in awe. Rock notices Nico is missing while Nico wanders around the prison thinking about what flavor his medicine will be today. Nice nearly jumps out of his skin when he sees a person floating in midair doing meditation like some alien monk. Back in the game, Uno talks about his wish. He loves gambling with his friends and wants to use the prize to build a game room. He screams that this is why he cannot lose and snatches the final card to finish the match. At the same time, Nico runs toward Hajime screaming his name. He yaps about the floating man he saw. Before Hajime can respond, Mitsuru announces the next event. A massive hole opens in the ground and the 4th round is top spinning. Mitsuru explains the rules that teams must use giant tops and either knock the opponent's top out of the ring or break it. Each team will consist of 2 inmates and a guard. Mitsuru introduces the teams. He announces Building 13 led by Hajime and calls him Superhuman Gorilla. Seiman laughs and says the title fits too well on Hajime, but his laughter dies fast when Mitsuru labels him a moronic monkey with low IQ. He announces Building 13 will face Building 5. Then he introduces Building 4 led by Kenshiro Yazakura and calls him a former dog trainer. Kiji from Building 3 gets introduced right after and Mitsuru calls him a pheasant with heavy makeup. Seiman jumps into the arena with his participant inmates. Mitsuru announces the participants from Building 5. Inmate 71, Chi, and Inmate 58, UPA, the same floating alien that scared Nico earlier. Nico recognizes him and grabs Hajime to point him out. Hajime gets slammed headfirst into the ground and Seiman mocks his flashy entrance calling him a gorilla. Mitsuru labels it a grudge match between Seiman and Hajime, even though Hajime only fell because Nico is a dumbass. Both leaders spin their massive tops. Seiman tells his inmates to rush Hajime, but Nico jumps in front of them, saying 2 against 1 is unfair. The inmates cannot believe Nico is suddenly serious. Then he shifts into superhero mode and calls them evildoers and tells them to pray. UPA tells Chi to finish it fast, but finds him lying on the ground, saying Nico is easy to handle alone. Nico jumps at UPA and tries to smash him with a huge ball tied to his leg, but UPA dodges and calls him slow. Nico asks him to teach him the flying technique he used earlier. UPA refuses and says he cannot learn Qigong. Nico says he will show him a cool move in return and jumps with a kick, yelling a move name filled with censored curse words. Seiman meanwhile ignores the tops and runs straight at Hajime with his staff. He says he hates him and wants to take care of the painful task first. He tries smacking Hajime, but Hajime grabs the staff and tosses it away. Both rush at each other and clash fists. The warden's face turns red as she watches, and her imagination runs wild, but the audience thinks she is fuming with rage. Hajime tells Seiman he does not have time for a monkey like him and throws him back. He runs toward the tops, but Yamato yells a warning. Hajime dodges a huge laser from UPA at the last second. Nico asks if that was a Kamehameha but gets censored. He keeps screaming at it while Jugo desperately tries to beep him out. Nico again begs UPA to teach him that move. UPA punches him, but Nico blocks with a kick. UPA freezes when he recognizes the kick as one used by his teammate Leon. Nico says it looked cool, so he copied it. Jugo explains that copying cool moves that he likes is his specialty. UPA and Nico start throwing hits at insane speed. UPA is surprised by how fast Nico grows mid-fight, and Nico asks again if he can be his disciple. Chi tells UPA to just take him since UPA's prize wish is to gain a disciple if they win. UPA tells him that he is a Qigong master and wants a worthy student. Nico screams at him to pick him and gets serious for a moment and says he wants the prize for something important. They have TVs and magazines but no games, and he wants the latest video games, calling it true luxury. UPA calls it a worthless goal and kicks him away. He says if Nico wins, he might consider making him a student. Meanwhile, Hajime reaches the tops. Seiman blocks him and says the report Hajime submitted must be wrong. He suspects something shady about Hajime managing inmates so well. Hajime gets furious and grabs Seiman by his collar with cold eyes while Seiman jumps and swings his staff wildly at him. In another arena, Kenshiro fights Kiji when a blast from Hajime's arena shakes them. Kiji throws a spinning blade which Kenshiro barely dodges. Kenshiro calls him a rotten guard. Kiji charges with kicks and punches, but Kenshiro dodges and stays focused on reaching the final. Back in Hajime's arena, Seiman is horrified because Hajime does not flinch at any attack. Everyone watches in disbelief as Hajime dodges every swing without moving from his spot. The warden trembles as she watches Hajime's strength. Hajime punches Seiman into the ground and calls him a wannabe thug. Nico and UPA clash again. Nico gets closer with each hit and finally lands a tiny hit and gets excited, saying UPA should take him as a disciple now. UPA says it was pure luck and fires a Qigong blast like his Kamehameha style move. Nico gets hyped and says if he dodges this, then UPA must accept him. Hajime grabs the enemy top with brute strength and hurls it into Seiman. Nico charges up his own attack, yelling that his hand is burning red, which is the one line he always wanted to say. He fires his curse-filled laser toward UPA. As the dust from the explosion clears, UPA and Seiman both end up on the ground. Building 13 wins the round thanks to Nico and Hajime. Nico is about to pass out from exhaustion, but Hajime catches him and praises him. In the other arena, Kiji loses to Kenshiro. Kenshiro moves on to the finals and vows to defeat Hajime this time. The warden blushes as she hides a book when Mitsuru walks into her office and spots what she is trying to hide. He picks it up and finds food photos in it, and he teases her for checking out cute stuff during work hours. They walk together while talking about the match between Building 13 and Building 4. Mitsuru mentions their supervisors are the top 2 guards in Namba prison. He explains that the fight between Hajime and Kenshiro will stream across every building. The warden says the tournament exists to show inmates the strength of the guards. She says it shapes inmate behavior and calls it Namba's way of teaching them. Mitsuru taunts and compares her attitude to Hajime's, but she knocks him out with a clean punch. Inori mocks Seiman for losing and says his injuries healed fast thanks to cheese medicine. Seiman tells him to stop talking about it in public. Inori keeps running his mouth and says QI can make both medicine and poison from wild flowers that they provide him. He asks Seiman if he used poison in the fight, but Seiman says he stopped Chi from using poison. He admits Chi used some airborne medicine to weaken everyone. It did nothing to Nico since the guy is basically a walking drug museum. Hajime did not get affected either. He did not move an inch from his spot. Inori wonders if Hajime expected it and if he is onto them, but Seiman thinks Hajime acted on instinct and says he hates him for it. Hajime smokes while Cider tells him Nico is in the infirmary. Mitsuru announces the final match between Building 13 and Building 2. The warden congratulates both sides and tells them to go all out. She reveals the final round is a sake barrel opening contest. The team that opens the barrel first wins, and every team must have one guard and one inmate. Jugo asks who will join the round, but Uno and Rock bully him into entering since he is the main character. Hajime tries to tap out and asks Yamato to take his place, but Kenshiro blocks him. Kenshiro demands a fair fight since he lost to Hajime last year. Hajime says he is tired, but Kenshiro pushes him to refuse the order while staring directly at the warden. Hajime looks at the warden and freezes as she stares at him with her usual intense face. He panics, thinks he is doomed and agrees to join. Kenshiro assumes Hajime obeys the warden because he loves her like he does. He blushes while thinking about dedicating his win to her charm. He says he hates Hajime because the warden always pays attention to him and is determined to prove himself to warden. Jugo is disgusted about teaming up with Hajime. Kenshiro orders inmate 634 to handle him. Jugo recognizes him as Mousashi, who greets him. Hajime asks Jugo if he knew the guy. Jugo says he was his cellmate in a different prison and gets angry saying Mousashi caused him endless trouble. Mitsuru starts the match. Both teams start running toward the sake barrels. Kenshiro tells Mousashi to take out number 15. Mousashi kicks Jugo, but Jugo blocks it. Mousashi calls him rusty, which annoys Jugo. Uno gets surprised to watch Mousashi fight blind. He notices Mousashi depends only on his senses and still fights like a menace. Hajime walks up the stairs, but Kenshiro stops him with his whip. Kenshiro wants the number 1 title but freezes when Hajime tells him he can have it. Kenshiro snaps and says the warden will only recognize him if he beats Hajime. He grabs Hajime and throws him into the sky to smash him into the ground. Hajime escapes midair and lands without a scratch. He rushes at Kenshiro, but Kenshiro blocks his punch with his whip. Hajime pulls out a gun planning to end things fast. Jugo runs toward the barrel, but Mousashi blocks him. Jugo says he has no time for this. But Mousashi says he does not care and he will take his shackles by force. Kenshiro gets shocked when Hajime takes out a gun. Hajime points at the nearby weapon box when Kenshiro asks. Mitsuru explains the new rule. Contestants can use anything from that box. All weapons are safe since guns shoot rubber bullets and swords are fake metal. Hajime fires rubber bullets while mentioning Kenshiro would not die from them. Kenshiro dodges and gets mad, but Hajime calmly pulls out an automatic gun and sprays bullets into his face. The warden blushes as she imagines cool sniper Hajime shooting straight through her heart in some dramatic fantasy scene. Kenshiro grabs a toy bow with sticky arrows while Hajime picks up a pointy stick. Kenshiro fires sticky arrows at him while Hajime tries to smack him. The warden imagines a heroic figure taking arrows to protect her. Kenshiro rushes in with his blade-like hands and one hit knocks off Hajime's badge. He looks at the warden hoping she saw that, but the warden compares him to a puppy trying too hard. Jugo gets slammed into a wall by Mousashi. Mousashi calls their fight a joke and asks where the old Jugo went. He mentions Jugo was the one who took his eyes. Meanwhile, Hajime and Kenshiro fight. Hajime mocks Kenshiro as he starts slowing down. Seiman sits next to Kiji in the audience and says Kenshiro cannot beat Hajime. Kiji feels sorry for Kenshiro's hopeless crush since Kenshiro blushes watching the warden admire Hajime. Kenshiro imagines the warden telling him she will accept him if he beats Hajime. Kenshiro takes out his secret move, and Hajime gets hit by invisible strikes. Kenshiro brags that Hajime cannot dodge what he cannot see. Seiman calls the technique Kamaitashi and explains the whip moves at insane speed and creates cutting wind. He calls it impossible for a human, but Kenshiro pulls it off. Kenshiro stands far away mocking him while Hajime gives a cold reply saying the only thing improving is Kenshiro's comedy routine. Mousashi slams Jugo again. He notices Jugo's shackles and says he is holding back because of not using them. He tells Jugo to hand over the shackles and says he will do anything to take them. Hajime watches Jugo and worries about him, but Kenshiro interrupts him. Hajime gets pissed and charges while Kenshiro uses his invisible hits again, but Hajime breaks through them. He reaches Kenshiro's face and punches him away. Hajime tells Kenshiro always gives off murderous intent when he attacks and his eyes track the attacks. So Hajime doesn't need to see them to dodge them. The crowd goes wild at Hajime. Mousashi keeps demanding Jugo's shackles. Jugo says he cannot unlock them. Mousashi asks if the guard with the scar can unlock them. Jugo freezes and asks if he knows that guard, but Mousashi ignores him. Jugo's eyes shift color, screams and demands answers. He loses control and unleashes wild punches. Mousashi gets excited watching Jugo burst into fury. He slams him into a wall with flames around him, shocking everyone. Kiji identifies it as spontaneous human combustion. She mentions the human body turns into fire with some plasma-like effect. She says many theories exist, but he has never seen someone create flames like this. Jugo lies on the ground, thinking he will do anything to get info about that man. His eyes turning red with rage and rubble around him breaks from the pressure of his aura. Nico tries to run back to see him fight, but Cider stops him. Jugo's arms transform into monstrous blade shapes. Excited, Mousashi asks why he wants info about that man. He calls Jugo a monster and says everyone can now see his true form. Jugo thinks about the man who changed his body and says he will chase that bastard anywhere. His rage explodes and the whole place fills with an intense aura. Uno and the others panic when they see Jugo's new form. They beg him to calm down, but he snaps and swings at Mousashi with wild rage. Mousashi dodges, but the slash tears through the floor and shoots toward the audience. Mitsuru declares an emergency and tells inmates to return to their cells in an orderly way, but everyone runs for their lives. The warden orders him to cut the cameras as she starts worrying about how bad this is getting. Nico thanks Yamato for shielding them from the blast. Uno and Rock look terrified as they watch Jugo lose control. Jugo charges at Mousashi again and tries to split him apart. Mousashi blocks and counters with his flames. Jugo jumps and slices his arm, which blows apart more of the arena. The warden notices Jugo's shackles have changed shape. She panics and orders the guards to capture both of them, saying they are beyond anything they have handled before. Mousashi throws flames at Hajime and Kenshiro to keep them out of his way. Jugo comes from behind and tries another slash, but Mousashi dodges. Jugo screams for information and threatens to take Musashi's arms like he took his eyes. Mousashi remembers the moment Jugo blinded him in another prison and how he swore he would take Jugo's shackles one day. Furious, he unleashes huge flames and traps them both inside the heat. Mousashi mocks him, saying he will burn Jugo to ash to get the shackles since no one else can unlock them. Jugo slashes his arms and sends flames flying across the arena. One stray blast reaches the section where Uno and the others sit with Yamato. Yamato tells them to run, but they worry that Jugo is going straight to special confinement if he keeps this up. Yamato tells them this level of violence means trial, not confinement, and a higher sentence on top. The inmates have no idea how to fix this. Kenshiro jumps in and smashes his whip between the two, interrupting the fight. He orders Mousashi to stop and warns him a trial is waiting if he does not stop. Mousashi laughs and says he has to catch him first. He sends flames at the guards, but freezes when they do nothing. Seiman and Kiji appear next to Kenshiro blocking the fire, but instead of fighting together, those fools start arguing and roasting each other like a bunch of clowns. Hajime approaches Jugo while the others keep Mousashi occupied. Kiji throws a spinning blade at Mousashi, which he blocks with a fireball. He tries to strike back, but Kenshiro crushes his arm with his whip. The warden gets smug and says Mousashi is facing the best guards in Namba and should stop acting confident. Mousashi fires more flames at Kiji, but Kiji taunts saying his flames are getting weak. Kenshiro sees the opening and charges while yelling for Seiman to prepare. He leaps at Mousashi, ready to apprehend him since he is responsible for him. Mousashi laughs and charges a flame attack midair, knowing Kenshiro cannot dodge. Seiman throws his special sticks at Mousashi, which he dodges barely, but the sticks snap together and form a cage around him. Kenshiro's whip lands on his neck while Seiman says the sticks will explode if Mousashi fires flames. Kenshiro adds his whip has anesthetic to weaken him. They celebrate catching Mousashi through teamwork. The warden now worries about the next threat. Hajime shoots at Jugo, but Jugo blocks the bullets with his transformed arms. Hajime reloads and says he has been suspicious of him for a while. He shoots again, but Jugo slices each bullet. Jugo's friends panic, knowing he is heading toward a trial. Uno starts thinking of how to stop him. Jugo charges at Hajime and tries to slash him, but Hajime grabs him by the foot. Jugo twists out of it, but Hajime holds a gun to his head and demands answers. Jugo knocks his arm away. Uno, in his main character wannabe moment, jumps into the arena to stop him, and the others follow. Rock grabs Jugo from behind while Nico smacks his head, trying to calm him down. Uno tells him they know all his habits and he needs to stop. Nico adds that he will face trial if he keeps going. Jugo ignores them and asks where Mousashi is. They try holding him again, but Jugo slashes the floor and sends them flying. He walks toward Uno, who still tries to convince him. Jugo raises his blade at his head when Hajime appears and stops the arm with his bare hands. He tells Uno to move while he punches Jugo in the gut so hard blood shoots from his mouth. Jugo drops to his knees and Uno tries to stop Hajime, but he kicks Jugo again and picks him up by the collar. He punches him repeatedly, leaving blood on both of them. Uno yells for him to stop, but Hajime ignores him until the warden screams from above. Only then does Hajime halt. She orders Mitsuru to get the medics and ends the New Year tournament. Jugo collapses on the floor unconscious. A few days later, Seiman and other supervisors mock Hajime for going too far and almost beating Jugo to death. Hajime denies it and says he only hit him a little. They remind him he hit Jugo 8 or 9 times and Jugo is still unconscious and in critical condition. Kiji tells him to take responsibility since the tournament got ruined because of him. She gets mad when he denies it and says he went full berserk mode. She reminds him blood was dripping off his face during the New Year feast, and the chef from Building 13 was furious. Kenshiro says the higher-ups are taking action, and they cannot relax. Hajime leaves saying he is done talking to a monkey and a bird with makeup. They remember how stone-hearted Hajime opened sake to win the competition, while Jugo lay half-dead. Mitsuru walks in looking for Hajime with a letter. Hajime goes to cell 13 to check on them, but Uno throws a bucket at him and calls him a demon. Uno grabs him by the collar and says Jugo is still unconscious because of him. He asks if Hajime is willing to kill someone in the name of duty, but the room goes silent when Hajime says he will if he has to. He pulls Uno's hand off and admits he went too far and did not intend to kill Jugo. As he leaves, Uno says Jugo is not good at anything except escaping and being a dumbass, but he understands people. He tells him that if Jugo is a monster, then Hajime is the bigger monster. Hajime smokes in his office. Cider asks about cell 13. Hajime says they kicked him out and cursed him for hurting Jugo while keeps smoking with a guilty look. Mitsuru shows up with the letter from the warden. When Hajime asks about it, Mitsuru reads that Hajime is suspended for 3 days. Shocked, the cigarette falls out of Hajime's mouth. Mitsuru says the punishment is light considering what he did. He realizes seeing Hajime depressed that even 3 days feels heavy for someone like Hajime. Meanwhile, the warden cries alone in her office because she had to punish her beloved Hajime. Cider welcomes Hajime back after 3 days. Hajime asks if everything stays normal while he is gone. Cider sighs and says no one from cell 3 tries to escape, but his face screams the opposite. On the way down the hall, he runs into Kenshiro. Hajime praises him for handling during his absence and tells him about Jugo waking up and he plans to interrogate him. Kenshiro tells him he is too cold since Jugo stays in a coma for 3 days because of him. Hajime brushes it off and asks what he did with Mousashi. Kenshiro explains that Mousashi stays in the underground prison because he causes most of the damage. He mentions Mousashi refuses to talk before speaking with number 15. That catches Hajime's interest, and he asks for the reason. Kenshiro suggests they might learn about their supernatural powers if they let them talk. He gives Hajime a radiophone, who looks at him and mocks him for taking orders from an inmate. Kenshiro insists it is necessary to stop future incidents. Hajime walks away and says he will break all of Jugo's limbs if that sort of incident happens again. Kenshiro enters the underground prison and asks Mousashi if he is comfortable. Mousashi laughs and says solitary confinement would be better. He demands to speak to Jugo when Kenshiro hands him the radio and tells him to use it. Meanwhile, Hajime visits Jugo and places the radiophone in front of him. Jugo sits locked in heavy shackles that trap him from every side. Hajime informs him about shutting down all the cameras and that Jugo can try to unlock the chains on his own, but Jugo refuses. His voice is cold and says escaping means nothing and he does not want anything anymore. Hajime activates the radio and tells him Mousashi wants to talk. Hajime suggests to him that they should settle things over the phone. Mousashi speaks first and asks if Jugo is still in the infirmary, speaking like they are old friends. Kenshiro asked him to get straight to the point, then he asks if Jugo knows anything about the man with the scar. His face, his voice, anything, and says he is searching for him too. Jugo says he wants to ask the same thing and all he knows is the scar and the fact that the man puts him in shackles. Mousashi smirks and says he figures as much. He asks if Jugo's goal is to find the scarred man and remove the shackles. Mousashi laughs like a maniac when Jugo admits it. He mocks him and says he should cut off his arms and legs if he wants the shackles gone. Jugo asks what Mousashi wants from the shackles while Mousashi smirks and says it brings him closer to his real target. He wants to kill the man with the scar. Jugo freezes and asks why Mousashi wants to go that far. Nearby, the yellow-haired freak hides in the shadows and listens. Mousashi mentions that the shackles turn Jugo into a monster, but he has been like that since childhood. He calls his ability disgusting and he's suffered a lot because of it. One day, the man with the scar along with the yellow hair guy visited him proposing to treat him. But he just used his body for his research, turning him from a freak to a real monster. Mousashi tells Jugo that shackles are also part of his experiment, and modifying a human body is easy for that man. Mousashi remembers losing control as flames cover his whole body. He tries to burn them, but the man with the scar cuts through the flames with a blade-like arm identical to Jugo's. Jugo stiffens and anger sparks in his eye hearing this. Hajime notices someone hiding, but he keeps listening. Mousashi says the shackles are special and they can cut through his fire. He wants them so he can combine flame power with the shackles and kill the man with a scar for real. Jugo tells him that the logic checks out. Mousashi sighs and tells Jugo that it no longer matters. The Namba doctors implant a chip in him and he cannot use his flames now. He is just a normal inmate and cannot take the shackles from Jugo even if he wants to. Jugo asks why he tells him this. Mousashi replies he wanted to see his reaction, and then he hangs up. Jugo calls him a dumbass for bragging about things he cannot do. Hajime calls him empty and stupid and says he feels disappointed. He expected Jugo to have some hidden reason for escaping again and again, and he wanted to figure it out. Hajime says he lost his motivation and picks up the phone. Jugo asks if he lacks something the others have. Hajime tells him it is greed after thinking for long. He tells him he has no greed for anything, and that is the reason he doesn't know why Mousashi told him about shackles. He mocks him saying he escaped just to prolong his objective of catching that scarred guy. Stunned, Jugo denies to admit that saying it cannot be right. Hajime tells him that he came this far for his satisfaction, and then he lied to himself by hiding the truth. At last, Jugo admits what Hajime is saying is true and says these shackles were all he had from the start. He was happy as he finally had an objective when he was trapped in those shackles. He always knew he was a bore, but in the tournament he realized the difference between his friends and him. He was jealous of them and enjoyed their company and the atmosphere a lot, but he was always afraid of hurting them like he did to Mousashi. Jugo feels afraid going to his friend as he has seen his monster form. Depressed, Jugo suggests he should just cut his arms and legs as Mousashi said. Jugo wants to stay trapped in those as a form of punishment. Hajime calls him an idiot and says he hates brats like him. Hajime tells him to not forget his reason for coming to Namba. Curious, Jugo thinks it is to find the man with the scar but realizes it is not and fails to come up with anything. Jugo falls to the ground and asks Hajime, who is about to leave, about what he should do. Hajime notices the desperation in his eyes and tells him that he can ask for anything as the winner of the New Year's tournament. He mentions he will not be in charge of him after 5 minutes and he will lose the privileges of being the winner. Suddenly, he recalls his friend telling them about their wishes and being excited about them. Depressed, Jugo realizes he has grown dependent on them and he would not get any wishes of his own if he stays with them. Hajime starts walking saying his time is over when Jugo comes up with a wish that is to give him another chance. Hajime praises him, calling him greedy like a normal human. He throws him his cell plate of number 15, saying it is his chance of getting back to his cell. He mocks him saying he will crush his bones if he tries to do anything. Jugo smirks as he breaks all his chains by just touching them. Jugo realizes he does not want to escape this prison now and wants to face the man with a scar with full resolve. Jugo mocks Hajime and says he will allow him to take care of him once again. During Hajime's suspension, Kenshiro takes charge of Building 13. The warden asks the other supervisors to take turns watching the place, but they all hesitate. She stares at them saying it is undeniable and reminds them Building 13 is a nest of troublemakers and without Hajime there is a high chance of chaos. Kiji and Seiman turn to Kenshiro in shock when he accepts the job. Kenshiro punches the wall in despair because it is an order from her beloved warden. Kenshiro brings Nico for a checkup but yells when the other two dumbass tag along. They tell him they will not escape and that Hajime used to allow them if they behaved. They mention they miss their friend. Kenshiro tells them Jugo is not in the infirmary and is in a special hospital ward where no visitors are allowed. Kenshiro takes them to Dr. Otogi and tells them to sit and wait. Nico recognizes the pretty boys from Building 3 as Otogi treats them. Uno mocks them for getting destroyed in the tournament. They explain they are here for follow-up treatment after the fights. Uno gets curious and asks about their injuries, so they show him scratches with a magnifying lens. Nico asks for medicine like a dumbass, but Otogi refuses and says he must examine him first for lingering issues. Kenshiro asks why and Otogi explains Nico gets infected by people and has the ability to mimic abilities despite his tiny body. He mentions Nico will die if he tries to copy something stronger and scolds Nico for ignoring the medicine that keeps the power stable. Kenshiro notices Uno and Rock looking around and tells them Jugo is not there. Their eyes shift and he realizes they are looking for something else. They jump in excitement when they see Kagu, the robot girl, bring the medicine. Everyone focuses on her and starts making weird pervy requests. The pretty boys take the lead asking her about her underwear color and act like they forgot they came here for medical help. Meanwhile, Hajime's brother scolds him at home because he brought too much work again. Kiji arrives at cell 13 saying it is her turn to supervise. She tries to impress them with her beauty, but the idiots get scared instead. Their mood drops when Uno subconsciously mentions Jugo and they start worrying. Kiji begins crying because she sees how much they care. The dumbass then place Jugo's photo on a mattress and call it Jugo, which kills the mood. Kiji tells them they have zero sense of aesthetics and she starts teaching them about Namba's structure. She shows a map of Japan and points at the island where Namba prison sits. She explains the prison has 13 buildings with thick walls, a reception, an arena, a shopping mall and a movie theater. Nico wants to visit the theater but Kiji refuses and says recreational spots are for officers only. She adds that each building has a supervising officer picked based on their skills. She says it takes 30 minutes to travel from Building 3 to Building 13. Kiji sighs saying she had to wake up early and was not able to do proper makeup to reach here. Curious, she asks if they learned anything today but gets furious when she sees Uno sleeping like a clown. She kicks him for ignoring her, who complains she is damaging his beautiful face. She rates their beauty with Rock getting 9 points, Nico getting 8 and Uno getting a generous 2. Uno gets furious and calls her a garish bird, followed by Kiji fires back calling him a spoiled potato. They yell insults until Cider walks in after hearing the noise. Uno and Kiji both yell at him because he dares to show his pretty face. Seiman asks Cider about cell 13. Cider says they are behaving well, but Seiman does not believe him and goes to check himself since it is his shift. Seiman gets furious when he sees them sleeping peacefully and yells at them to wake up. They all scramble to hide when Yamato arrives to call them for exercise. Seiman exposes them right as Yamato is about to leave. They make childish excuses, but Yamato drags Rock, saying he is Japanese pride even though the dumbass is from America. Seiman remembers Rock defeated his opponent with one punch in the tournament and decides he is not someone to take lightly. He orders the rest to join training, but Uno screams that he is an indoor person. Seiman goes after him, but Uno grabs Nico and threatens to unleash Nico's abilities. Seiman freezes because if Nico mimics something dangerous, he will need to write a long apology letter. Rock ruins Uno's plan by snitching that Nico took his medicine today and cannot use any powers. Rock says this is their punishment for being selfish and sending him alone. During push-ups, they keep thinking about when Jugo will return. At present, Jugo hesitates at the entrance and asks if he can really go back. Hajime drags him inside. As they walk, Jugo says he still does not understand why Mousashi told him that story. Hajime sighs and says Mousashi wants him to hunt down the man with the scar. Mousashi lost his flames, so he wants Jugo to take revenge in his place. Hajime calls him a dumbass for missing something so obvious. Hajime lights a cigarette and says he will not allow Jugo to escape even for that mission, and he will deal with the man with the scar. Hajime then throws his cigarette because Jugo reminds him smoking is not allowed. Hajime opens the cell 13 door. Nico and Rock greet him after his suspension. Jugo hesitates, but Hajime pushes him inside. They all get excited seeing Jugo with Nico and Rock asking about his injuries. Jugo stays stiff and stutters through answers while Uno rushes at him and punches him in the face. They both scream at each other for the injuries they caused. Uno says he is glad he is back because it was lonely without him. Rock and Nico talk around him as Jugo listens. Jugo realizes he has been pushing them away and apologizes. He bows down and says he lost control in the tournament and will never raise his blade against them again and begs for another chance. Uno and Rock stare at him, then laugh saying it is such a dramatic Japanese apology and tell him to relax. Jugo breaks down crying because he realizes how much they care and thanks them for not abandoning him. The warden gets a call and becomes excited because Hajime is coming to see her. She blushes and wonders how she should greet him. Mitsuru hears her and tells her to just smile. He mocks her more by sticking a poster of Hajime's face on himself and acting charming. The warden snaps and beats the hell out of him. Hajime heads to her office feeling guilty for not filing Jugo's report. When he arrives, he freezes because Mitsuru lies on the floor and the warden stands above him with blood on her face. She tries to smile, but it twists into something terrifying. Hajime slams the report on her desk and runs for his life. Rock wakes up from a bad dream about his past. He remembers his father being disappointed in him and how he ran away from home. He started taking fights like a dumbass until it finally landed him in jail. Rock pulls out of the dream and sees Jugo sitting beside him. He gets excited and tells Jugo it is coming today. Liang is in his cell doing workouts while feeling salty about losing to Rock. Chi tells him to just take his medicine if he wants to win, but Liang refuses with UPA and Liang calling Chi's method weak. Inori enters the cell and tells Liang he has to meet Rock in Building 13. Liang sits with Rock and his group wondering why he was called. Rock offers him a slice of pizza with a serious face. He explains that this pizza is special because it came out of the stone oven he wished for during the tournament. The giant chef Shiro appears behind Liang with his usual stone-cold expressions. Inori also tries the pizza and says it tastes great. Liang finally takes a bite and looks shocked because it is actually delicious. Rock gets hyped and starts talking about all the benefits of a stone oven. Yamato joins in and eats pizza with rice, saying Japanese people eat everything with white rice. Everyone praises Rock for his good taste and his food knowledge. Shiro brings fresh peach buns and Rock says he has been trying to make Chinese food. Liang's face turns red as he eats one because it is too good. He admits he never really enjoyed food before and always ate only for protein and training, but this time he is actually enjoying it. Rock tells him he has lost weight since the first time he saw him and that his appetite will get bigger now that he has started eating real food. Rock thinks they are blessed to have great food every day. Liang apologizes to Rock for calling his dream pointless and leaves. Jugo tells Rock he has changed. Rock sighs and says maybe it is because of Namba's amazing food, then thinks maybe it is because of meeting Jugo. He says if he never met Jugo, he would have never known the joy of eating. He remembers how he was thrown into prison starving and unable to move. Jugo gave him food, but Rock rejected it, calling it crappy. So Jugo broke his chains and dragged him outside to eat a good burger, which Rock ate like a wild animal. Rock says it was because of Jugo he can enjoy food now. He tells Jugo not to worry because he will treat him to more food and help him find his favorite dish. Uno asks Shiro to bring extra peach buns for Nico. Meanwhile, Nico lies on his bed feeling lonely. He has bad dreams about being used as an experiment. Dr. Otobi tells him that the procedure is almost done. Nico wakes up when his friends arrive with peach buns. The doctor stops him from going too far since he was examined just now. Uno asks if the doctor fought with his wife because he looks annoyed. Otobi says he cannot stand her nasty personality. His wife Kazari Otogi, who is also the head scientist, hears it and blasts open the wall with a rocket launcher. Both start arguing about something dumb like how she used the wrong sauce on a fried egg. Uno tells Kagu to say that line. She calls them mother and father and asks what divorce means. Both calm down and let the argument slide as they hear it. Kazari tells Nico the game system he wanted as a reward is finally done, and Nico jumps with excitement. Kazari brings everyone to the game room she built. The room is filled with games, and she says these are just samples and the real special game will come later. Nico cannot decide which game to play, so he asks Hajime for a favor. She brings UPA and calls him master, asking him to play games with him. UPA rejects him, saying he never accepted him as a disciple. Chi tells UPA to stop yapping and just accept it. Jugo remembers Chi as the guy who slept during the tournament. Uno calls him scum for showing up uninvited. Meanwhile, Seiman gets mad at Hajime for bringing inmates to Building 13 again. Hajime calls him a loser monkey and walks past him. Seiman yells that he does not understand what his inmates can do. Hajime gets annoyed and both start insulting each other until Kazari hits them to calm them down. Uno and Rock play their favorite game together while acting like fools. Mitsuru sneaks up on Jugo and scares him, asking why he is not playing. Mitsuru mentions he helped create the games with Kazari and asks if Jugo hates games. Jugo gets awkward and says he has never played any, so Mitsuru tries to convince him, but he still refuses. Nico asks Jugo to play with him, so Jugo joins him in a game where they pick up items. Rock laughs when Jugo fails to grab anything and says all he knows is breaking jail. Uno steps in to show how it works and wins dolls of Jugo and Nico. Nico gets excited and shows his doll to UPA, but he rejects him again. He eventually plays from irritation when Uno mocks him. UPA tries the game but bursts into anger as he fails to pick up anything. He tries to break the machine, but Rock and Nico stop him. UPA finally focuses and wins his prize, which is a doll that looks like him. He looks proud of himself holding the doll. Kazari brings Nico the special game she built. It has all his favorite games in one mobile device. Nico does not feel too excited and says games are more fun when played with others. He thanks Kazari for making it, who leaves. Jugo asks Nico if games are really that fun. Nico replies games are the best thing in the world and he loves the characters and stories. He says he wants to be lively like games and tells Jugo he helped him realize that. He remembers lying in bed chained up until Jugo freed him. Jugo gave him manga to read and Nico enjoyed it so much. Nico thanks Jugo for helping him feel alive. Jugo sighs and asks Nico to teach him how to play games. Hajime and Cider also win prizes while yelling at others to stop playing. Uno spots Mousashi and stops him from leaving with Kenshiro. Mousashi asks Jugo if he has changed and walks toward him. Uno steps between them, but Jugo says he is fine. Uno asks Mousashi if he apologized properly for beating Jugo. Rock thinks most of that mess was Hajime's fault. Jugo tells Uno to chill because he does not care about it anymore, but Uno refuses to let it go, saying Mousashi still has no manners. Nico and Rock notice Uno acting like a mom. Mousashi apologizes to Jugo and Uno instantly becomes happy. He shakes Musashi's hand and compliments him. He even invites him to his game room when it is built. Later, Mousashi sits in his cell with Kenshiro. He says he cannot accept the invite since he is not allowed outside. Kenshiro says he will think about it if Mousashi tells him everything about his past. Mousashi agrees. Mousashi starts telling Kenshiro about his past. His body temperature was always higher than normal since childhood. He liked it because his mother called him son due to his warm skin, but everything changed after that one incident. One day his body heated up so much that he could not breathe since it felt like his throat was on fire. The doctors ran tests, but everything came out normal. Right when he started forgetting that fear, he suddenly burst into flames while he was in college. The doctor told his mom it was spontaneous human combustion and there was no real treatment. His parents stayed kind and never made him feel like a freak. Because of them, he tried to face his fear, but when he returned to college, the yellow-haired guy and everyone else got scared of him and called him a monster. He ran away and realized he could never live normally with this heat. He kept fighting it only because he had his parents, but that hope vanished the day he returned home and found his house burnt down. The yellow-haired guy blamed him for it, and the police arrested him. Mousashi tried to explain but burst into flames again and burned the officers around him. He tells Kenshiro he felt relieved when he finally got locked up because no one called him a monster. Kenshiro asks about the man with the scar. Mousashi says he met him in a prison in Germany. The Scar Man used him for experiments and turned him into a monster. He was a supervisor and a researcher in that prison. Mousashi remembers the man performing experiments on him and forcing him to ignite. Mousashi yelled at him for not treating him, but the man said he had turned into a human who could control fire at will. The yellow-haired guy stepped in and told him to stop complaining. He mocked him, saying all his effort would go to waste otherwise. He even admitted he was the one who spread rumors about Mousashi in college. He was also the real arsonist and the one who burned his home. Mousashi snapped and slammed him against the wall, asking why he did that. The yellow-haired guy says he did it for research and that no one cares about prisoners so they can run whatever experiments they want. The Scar Man calls him Elf and orders him to stop. Mousashi gets furious and punches the elf while igniting. He fires flames at the Scar Man, but the man uses his arm slashes to cut through the fire. The man says he has no more use for him and slashes Mousashi down. Mousashi tells Kenshiro he has nothing left to prove since everything was destroyed by his flames anyway. He feels calmer now because he cannot use his flames anymore. Kenshiro believes him since he saw how strong those flames were. Kenshiro says he knows mysterious men are doing experiments on inmates. He did some digging when he was a cop, but no one believed him, so he became a correctional officer to investigate inside the prison. Mousashi mocks him, saying he wants credit that badly. Kenshiro says he is doing it for his own justice and will never forgive them for their evil research on humans. Mousashi notices the fire in his eyes and says Kenshiro looks more fired up than him. Kenshiro says his justice weighs more than Musashi's rage. Kenshiro offers his hand and promises to punish those men. Mousashi sighs and asks if he really believes him after everything. Kenshiro smirks and says if even a tiny part of his story is true, he will hunt them down. Mousashi shakes his hand and says Kenshiro always looks too serious. Kenshiro mocks him for shaking hands and realizes Musashi's hand is actually warm. Meanwhile, Honey is yelling at Uno, asking why he brought them here. They argue like dumbass while Trois greets Rock and Nico, who calls him the handsome one. Uno tells them to follow him to their game room. Honey gets mad and tells Trois Uno to just bring them to show off. Kiji drags them forward since they are already there. Uno opens the door, but the room is empty. He smirks, saying it is not finished yet and that he wants all of them to complete it together. He dances in excitement, saying they can put anything they want in the game room. Hajime and Yamato carry sofas and furniture inside. Dumbass Cider asks Uno if alignment is right. Uno jumps on the sofa, saying he always wanted one. Cider mentions they bought it using inmate wages while Saman arrives with his inmates carrying more stuff. Rock asks if Uno invited them when Chi says Uno told them they can come anytime as long as they teach him mahjong. Saman talks to the other supervisors, but Mitsuru smacks them from behind and sends them flying. Mitsuru brings a huge box for Uno filled with gambling games, darts, and other stuff. Hajime gets annoyed, saying he now has to handle all this. Trois flexes his mahjong skills in front of Nico and Jugo. Nico calls him Mr. Handsome, which makes him agree instantly. Honey plays darts with Uno and admits it is pretty hard. Uno suddenly sees Mousashi and greets him. Kenshiro mocks Mousashi for not being happy, but he says he was not prepared for it. Honey tries talking to Mousashi, but Mousashi does not recognize him at all. Honey and Trois strike a pose and call themselves unforgettable pretty boys. When Mousashi still does not react, they introduce themselves again, desperately calling themselves the most handsome guys in the prison. Hajime steps in and tells them to stop playing because their time is up. All inmates get mad with Uno begging for more time, but Hajime refuses. Curious, Uno asks how long they can play each day. Hajime sighs and says only 1 hour. Everyone explodes in anger and roasts Hajime, who gets mad and punches all of them into the floor. Later, Jugo looks at the night sky when Uno asks if he wants to talk. Jugo says he cannot sleep because of what happened today. He smiles and says this is the first time he cannot sleep because something good happened. Uno starts roasting him, saying every one of his traits is weak. Jugo gets depressed when Uno calls him short-legged, saying he does not need to run too far anyway. Uno smiles and says it is all part of his character and they will teach him anything he does not know. He tells him to enjoy life and says they will win if they stay happy. Jugo gets emotional and steps outside for air. Uno sighs, saying going outside to cry alone is also part of his character. Jugo looks up at the sky, thinking about Uno's words. He smirks a little, but then the elf places a hand on his shoulder, asking what he is smiling at. Stunned, Jugo does not recognize the elf. The elf mocks him, saying he forgot him and they used to play together. Jugo wonders who he even is since he is not a guard or an inmate. The elf suddenly appears right in front of him and drives his knife at him. Frightened, Jugo falls back and realizes the knife was only an illusion. The elf keeps taunting him, saying he is not fun anymore and asks if this place made him boring. He mentions that if the man with the scar had never set Jugo free, they would not be dealing with any of this. Jugo's eyes flare as he asks about that man. The elf calls the man a great sinner to them, but a savior to Jugo. He mocks Jugo for forgetting his own savior and acting selfish and free. He tells Jugo to remember that he used to kill without flinching. He admires Jugo's shackles and asks if they hurt when they pierce flesh. Jugo says he does not want to remember anything, and he has no intention of hurting anyone with those shackles. He yells at the elf to take him to that bastard man. Hearing this, the elf rushes at him and slams his knife into Jugo's hands, threatening to kill him. Jugo suddenly recalls the memory of being covered in blood while a man begged him to run and saved his life before dying on the spot. Elf says he only wants to cut out Jugo's brain and wonders which part he should use. He takes out the pen and marks Jugo's head and says he will take the top part. Jugo freezes in fear, thinking he is about to die. The elf licks his blade as he prepares to pierce his skull and mocks him, saying they will take good care of his cells. He swings the blade down, but in the last second Jugo transforms and cuts the elf's knife with his shackles. Elf gets shocked to see Jugo control only one hand. Jugo is confused since he felt pain when Elf pierced his hands, yet it was all just an illusion, including the cut on his ear. Elf is disappointed that Jugo is not transforming fully and tells him to stop holding back. Furious, Jugo asks if they enjoy playing with his and Musashi's bodies. He tells him how much Mousashi suffered, but Elf still fails to recognize him. He finally introduces himself, saying he was in charge of Jugo, and mocks him again, saying test pigs do not need to know the plan. He came only to check on Jugo's status and collect a new body. Jugo bursts into rage, thinking about his friends, and is about to transform completely. Elf stops him and says he has a better idea. He drops from the Namba building and escapes. Jugo sits in shock, thinking he will put his friends in danger, his inner voice telling him to run. Hajime appears behind him and asks if he was talking to himself or to someone else. Depressed, Jugo sighs and says he is afraid of tomorrow. Back in the cell, Jugo sits with his friends and listens to their goofy gossip. They ask if he feels down, but he smiles and says he has never felt better. Later at night, Jugo tries to escape, but the others wake up and ask to join him. The alarms go off as they try to escape, and guards rush after them. Cider mentions they broke through the NBK zone and asks for Yamato's location. The inmates reach the final gate, where Uno asks why Jugo is unusually fired up. The gate opens, revealing the final trap of Building 13, which is Hajime himself. Hajime walks toward them slowly and scolds them if they are apes who cannot understand human language. Jugo pushes the button and traps the others inside, saying farewell to them. They yell at him to stop since he is going to get beaten like a dumbass. Hajime warns him that if he crosses the line he will regret it. His friends realize Jugo is dead serious about escaping and ask him why. Jugo smiles and says their last escape was fun. He thinks if he escapes, Elf will chase him and leave his friends alone. Jugo crosses the line, transforms one of his shackles and charges straight at Hajime. Hajime punches him in the gut, sending him flying. Jugo slashes at Hajime's head, but Hajime barely dodges. He realizes this will not be easy to handle monstrous power. Jugo attacks again, but Hajime punches him into the gate. Hajime mocks him, saying he cannot win with only one shackle. Jugo rushes again, transforms both shackles and swings them with immense force. Mitsuru sees this on the camera and panics. Cider arrives and the inmates beg him to open the gate. He refuses, saying they will face charges, but Uno mocks him, saying handsome guys are always useless. They try to convince him since they cannot let their friend die. Jugo tries to slash Hajime, but Hajime blocks the shackles with his bare hands. He asks Jugo if he found his reason for leaving. Hajime tells him he has nowhere left to go and Namba is his final destination. He throws Jugo in the air and punches him again, telling him to behave. Jugo slashes mid-air and cuts Hajime's hat, deciding his own path. Uno and the others beg Cideru until he finally opens the gate. They sprint toward Jugo and Hajime while the two rush at each other ready to strike, but right before they collide, Uno and Rock jump between them. Hajime and Jugo yell at them to move, but they refuse. Uno tells Jugo he will have to cut him if he keeps going. Jugo says he does not want to lose them and remembers how they always appreciated him. Jugo is about to strike when Nico runs in and kicks his knee. Jugo falls and they all pin him down with Nico cries, calling him a dumbass. Rock tells him the food in Namba is too good, so he would not let him leave. Jugo calms down and thanks them for their efforts. Uno notices a scratch on his face and punches Jugo for ruining his handsome looks. All the dumbass start fooling around until Hajime punches them, telling them to do it in their cells. Back in their room, Jugo feels the place is too spacious. They deny it with Nico saying it might be for Japanese people. Jugo smiles, thinking he will protect them and stay with them. Hajime hears them and walks away calmly, watching those dumbass act like usual. That's all for today, my fellow men of culture. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.